Can you believe it? We're already in the second week of Lent. A thought that's been crossing my mind a lot lately is that Lent is a lot like a long journey or a marathon, right? Where you can't spend all your energy at the beginning if you're going to make it to the end. And the same goes for the other way around. You can't go so slow, otherwise you don't make it to the end, right? Now, I am not a runner. I prefer not to run if I don't have to. But I do hear a lot about running, and I hear a lot about the marathon analogy, but I'm more familiar with hiking, right? And so hiking, when you're climbing a mountain, I think there's a lot of things that we can learn about this Lenten journey that our Lord has given to us in our human nature and in nature itself. And so I think that there's something we all have in common, that's that we like instant results. We like to see things happen right before our eyes. We like to get there faster. We like breaking records. We like to pack everything we could possibly need all in at once and take it along with us for the ride, for the moment that we possibly need it. But Lent makes us think differently. It's not a race. We cannot run through it. We also cannot walk too slowly. We must keep pace with what our Lord is marking out for us. He has a plan for us, and He wants us to go alongside Him and let Him be our coach, our Sherpa, our pace setter as we're going through this Lenten season. Imagine what it would be like to set all our efforts on the first part of Lent, that first week, to go all out and run through it. And I actually proposed this to a grade 3 class recently at Mass, and they came up with all kinds of ideas for me about what would happen. So they said things like, you would get too tired too fast. You would get cramps, obviously, right? You could trip and fall on the rocks if you're running too fast going up that mountain. You could take the wrong path and not even realize it, right? When you're just running along and you just go down the wrong trail. You would probably scare away the animals and you wouldn't enjoy the hike. What an amazing analogy that they all drew for us about what our Lenten experience could be like. We sometimes get really excited about finally getting to do something for God and go all out and doing it all at one time. Maybe we're saying some extra prayers, doing some devotions, praying some novenas, fasting 2 or 3 times a week, and definitely not giving in on Sundays like some of those other people do. But how is it working, right? What is it doing for our lives? Have we spent all our energy in those first moments? And do we have enough energy to get to the end? How long will this effort last, right? Maybe it will work, but to go from 0 to all of that really wouldn't last long in our spiritual life. And maybe we've already experimented that. Spiritual cramps will start to settle in even though we want to keep going, and maybe our friends are just up ahead of us, but we have to stop because we can't go any further. The cramps aren't going to let us do it. We can't keep up that pace, and we've all experienced this as we've tried to go up a mountain. How about those obstacles? The tripping on the rocks as we're trying to run along up this mountain. We already know that we are going to be tempted during this Lenten season, that it won't be easy. So how are we approaching it? Are we trying to run over all these obstacles and just move on and skip them without going through the process of learning what they are trying to teach us? And I love the comment about taking the wrong path. One of our grade 3 students was especially inspired in that moment. I haven't been seized by cramps and shortness of breath often, and I've been often able to get up the mountain, but if you're running along on the trail, if you're trying to get to the top fast, it is possible that you might see the trail as a blur and end up taking a path that isn't your path, a path that's made for someone else, right? And that can happen as well in our lives. And we don't want to be lost when Easter comes around at the end of these weeks of Lent. And so I think it's an opportunity for us to reflect on what is it our Lord is inviting us to, and are we following on His path, or are we trying to take our own paths, our own shortcuts to get to the top of the mountain? But maybe He wants us to go across some of those obstacles and to go through that process to understand it. Finally, maybe my favorite comment. You would probably scare all the animals away. I love how our young kids, our grade 3 students, always care about the animals. right? And you wouldn't enjoy the hike doing it that way, right? How would you like it if you finally got to see a moose in your life, or you saw a bear along the trail and it was far enough away that it's safe, but you scared it away, right? You had that opportunity that you are never going to get back, and you wouldn't enjoy it as much. When we take it a bit easier, when we pace ourselves on the way up the mountain, the views, the scenery, the animals, and all the details of God's creation, they're more beautiful, right? They make the journey more beautiful. And that's what our Lord wants to do with each one of us. He wants to set our pace for us. He wants to be one pointing off into the distance and showing us, you know what? This is what I want you to see in this moment. All I need you to do is to go at my pace. And our Lord's not out of shape, right? He's going to challenge us. He's going to push us a little bit further. He's going to ask us to take those steps. But we have to accept to take his pace as our own. And what if we go too slow? This could be another problem, right? We could go too slow. We could complain that every year Lent sneaks up on us and it catches us off guard, right? And we didn't even see it coming. Well, that's okay, as long as we decide that we're going to take the next steps, right? That we're going to get into the swing of things and live this Lenten season well. The error would be if we decide that we're going to give up this year and just start next year, right? The common phrase that comes as New Year's resolutions come around, well, I'll have to wait till the beginning of the month. No, you can start whenever you're ready. Well, whenever our Lord is ready, right? And he's going to give you all the graces you need. You don't have to worry about not having enough strength. He's going to give you what you need. Now, Jesus isn't worried about us going slow as much as he's worried about us going, right? We have to get going. Remember, he's a coach, and he's going to assess your skill level. He's going to see where you're at in your spiritual life. And he wants to challenge you, but he's not going to push you to the point where you're not going to make it to the end of the race or the top of the mountain. So I asked the kids about this scenario as well. You know, what about going too slow on a hike? What happens then? And it was interesting to hear some of the responses. You get so bored that you end up turning around and you never get to the top. Great answer. Also could be an analogy for our Lenten experience. If we don't do anything, well, we're just going to give up on living Lent well. Or you take too long and then it gets dark. And then you're in the dark and there's no fun hiking in the dark, right? I can tell you from experience. Your friends won't want to wait anymore for you to get to catch up with them if you're going too slow, right? So you got to make sure you're with the right people, especially with our Lord, as he accompanies you and sets the pace for you on your journey. Now, I think we can all understand that it's not a good idea to go too slow either. So the best end result's going to be when we're following at our Lord's pace, that we have a balance in our lives, that we're trying to look for ways that are going to help us to grow in the imitation of our Lord. So I pray that this idea of going at the pace of our Lord, that what he sets for you is the right pace, is going to help you in your Lenten journey. And that you arrive at Easter with this good habits, with this great formation, and with being in shape spiritually as you arrive with the joy of the resurrection and all the efforts that you've made to our Lord, that he's going to bless you as you continue this journey. So let's live this second week of Lent well. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. God bless.